storyteller is a guy that I've known longest in this room. And we met in 2007 when I moved to Colorado to teach. And he was a teacher at the high school that I was working at. We ended up just hanging out a lot. His apartment was the party apartment. And there's many memories I don't have from being there. So we never rode motorcycles together. We did rafting together. We did this beautiful long trip. And just really great time. So it was really thrilling to find out that he was based here in Louisville with his wife, and was able to catch up with them after something like 15 years of not seeing each other. So he's been a rider for over 55 years, originally from Michigan, me too. Spent most of his life in Colorado, and now he's traveling the country on his boat with his amazing wife Pia and their adorable puppy Bonnie, and he's thrilled to be here in this room full of motorcycle enthusiasts. Dude, please welcome to the stage Dave Niewander.
Yeah, Susan and I go back a ways. The high school that we taught at up in the mountains in Colorado, obviously the place is full of hippies, because at that school there were 4 women named Sage, Season, Daisy, and Snow White. I'm not making this up. They were all there. Like most motorcycle stories, it has a deeper meaning. It's kind of a metaphor for some life skills that I learned. The years that I was riding motorcycles, they taught me a lot of things. I kind of ended up putting motorcycles away for a while when I became a river rafter, because they happen at the same time of the year, you know, and you can't, when you're in a place that's got winter, if you're riding a bike, you're not rafting, and if you're rafting, you're not riding a bike. And both of those habits have a tendency to drain one's wallet. So I couldn't, you know, I just couldn't feed both habits at the same time. But there was a lot of years riding, and I learned the motorcycle theory of human relationships. And I'd like to share that with you with a story that I have about how when it was really brought home to me. You know, there's 3 basic kinds of motorcycles. Now, I'm not talking technical, and we can argue about this later, because everybody argues about what the best kind of motorcycles are and what they're good for and what they're not for. Of course, there's the cafe, sure, fine. I thought you were going to say the Flying Hawaiian. I mean, that's the one you were missing, right? The first kind of motorcycle I think that most of us are real familiar with, if there were a car, you'd call it a Chevy or a Ford or whatever. It's a perfectly fine machine. Almost every manufacturer makes them. They get you from point A to point B. They're dependable. They don't cost much money to get into, right? My first one was an old Honda 350 CL, right? Had a knobby tire and an upswept pipe, so they said you could ride it in the dirt, and at the same time you could ride it on the road. It didn't disappoint you. Doesn't cost you a lot of money to get into. Get you, like I said, point A to point B, and it's reliable transportation. It was wonderful. There's life partners like that too, right? They get you from point A to point B, safe, low maintenance, don't cost you a lot of money to get into. They're fine. That was my first wife. The problem with those motorcycles is that they don't do anything for your spirit, you know? They're just not exciting. Now, if they're way over on this side, on the other end, everybody knows these kind of bikes too, and everybody's got their favorite. You got your Ninjas, you got your Bugattis, you got your Busas, you got, you know, the crotch rocket varieties, right? You know these. Well, when Ian and I, my first wife, when she and I decided that 21 was too young to get married, by the time we were 28 and 29, we were completely different people, and decided respectfully that we should go our separate ways. We did. Now, I still had my point A to point B motorcycle, my Type A motorcycle, right? It was a Yamaha 650 Special. Great bike. Dependable, easy to work on. Although the one oops that I did with that is when I did the top end rebuild the first time I put it in, I put the cam in upside down, and then I put it back together and I started, and the backfire was, I don't think my ears were the same since. But anyway, I had that motorcycle, but the rest of my life was no longer that type of motorcycle or life. I met a whole bunch of, yeah, they were girls, they weren't women, they were girls at that point, and they were about 10 years younger than I was, and they were the other kind of motorcycle. They were fun. There's a whole bunch of them, and they worked at this, I had just gotten out of the Air Force, and I got a job selling copiers, which is a miserable way to make a living, let me tell you. At that time, you had to drive them around in your own van and pull them out and do 25 cold calls a day and 2 demos and try and hustle a photocopier on somebody. Well, these girls were all working in these offices, you know, all these receptionists that I would have to try to talk my way past. So obviously, they all got my card and I all got theirs, and we all lived in the same part of town, so we kept running into each other. And there was this band that played in a lot of bars that looked a lot like this. And we would end up at these places. Well, I made a couple of friends in the band. One day, they came and said, this was in Denver, Colorado, and they said, we got a gig in Estes Park, Colorado. Now, Denver is down here, Estes Park is up here in Rocky Mountain National Park. And the roads between Denver and Estes Park are a motorcycler's dream.
Oh, Peak to Peak?
They're best. You can do the Peak to Peak Highway one way. You can run up Cold Creek Canyon if you want. You can do, it's wonderful motorcycling. So I thought, this is great. It's June. We're going to go, I'm going to ride to Estes Park. Who am I going to get to go with me? One of them. So a whole bunch of them were going to go to the show anyway, so I asked Kimberly. Now, Kimberly and I had been familiar with each other over the course of since my divorce, or since my separation at least. But anyway, Kimberly thought that would be a great idea. Kimberly, there was the 3 that I recall right off the top of my head was Kimberly, Susan, and Cheryl. All 3 of them fine examples of the good Lord's handiwork, let me tell you. God had fun making those girls. There's no question about it. He truly did. Kimberly looked great. Kimberly made that Yamaha look like a great bike. She really did. Nobody was looking at how old that bike was, I can trust you. So we went up the hill, and it was just a wonderful time. And I was reasonably in control of myself. I didn't have any foreign substances before we got to the bar. I did have a couple at the bar, and some of which were legal and some of which weren't at the time in Colorado. Some of which are still illegal in Colorado. But this is before I was a school teacher, by the way, just so you know. So don't worry about your kids. Anyway, we go to the show. It's a great show. We're having a really good time, and a whole bunch of us had reserved 3 or 4 cabins to stay in because it was way too late to drive back down to Denver. So we had these little rustic kind of cabins to stay at. So the show gets over. We all go together as a gang, sort of just a crowd. We all head to these cabins. And the cabins were about 10 miles away from the show. Perfect. Everything's going great. The weather's great. Beautiful night in the mountains. We're just having a blast. We roll up to the cabins, and the cabins are next, one right next to the other. And in front of them are these little dirt spots, gravel spots to park. And in between each parking spot in front of each cabin are these things, the rustic-looking logs that are stained all nice, you know, and they're kind of raised up a little bit, but they're a perfect little bench to sit on. So the van with all the band stuff pulls up, and everybody else pulls up in the cars, and I pull up with the motorcycle right next to one of those, rev it a couple times, shut it off, kick the stand down, and hop off. Kimberly, bless her heart, does not get off the motorcycle. She sits on the motorcycle while everybody shows up, and Kimberly begins to preen. Kimberly does that well. She preens. So I sit down on this log thing next to the motorcycle, and a buddy comes up next to me and says, "You want a bump of this?" I said, "Of course, certainly." you want a drink of this? Yeah, absolutely. Another one says, "You want a hit of this?" Sure, why not? Well, I'm not saying no now. I'm here. I'm not going till the morning. The bike's parked. Everything's Jake. It's all going to be good. So I think probably the amount of time that it took was 15 minutes, I guess, maybe. By now I'm just in fine shape. And there's Kimberly, and she looks great. And everybody says Kimberly looks great, everybody notices. So Kimberly notices that everybody notices. She begins to spin around on the seat and lay her head back on the gas tank and pick up one leg like this. Well, the bike's on its kickstand in the gravel. I'm sitting over there on a log, and there goes Kimberly and the bike. Now I'm not sane at this point. My judgment is gone. So I'm responding purely from my brainstem. And I reach out to grab my motorcycle. Oh, Kimberly. I reach out to grab my motorcycle. And what do you suppose I grab? The exhaust pipe. Bam! On that stand-up Yamaha Twin that gets really hot. And in my state, I looked at my hand as it was smoking. And I heard it sizzle. And then I, one at a time, peeled my fingers off of that exhaust pan. My hand was still smoking. Kimberly is weeping in the driveway, and I do not care. I do not care. I'm looking at my hand, and I'm trying to say something, and I'm trying to holler, and I'm trying to yell, and I can't. And then, you know this kind of hurt. I mean, you start to be able to not see. And it hurts so bad I can't think, I can't see nothing. And my buddy Jeff, who's sitting next to me, he has more sense than I do. He quick runs in the cabin and gets a pan of water and brings it back out and sticks my hand in the pan of water. And it doesn't quite sizzle when it hit the water, but it felt like it did. And for the rest of the night, Kimberly, bless her heart, she brushed off her knees and restored her dignity. She sat with I laid on the bed with my head in her lap and ice packs on my hand, made it through the night. Didn't sleep much, but made it through the night. There was lots of stuff to kill the pain around, and I, took my fair share. But everybody felt terrible for me, and I felt terrible for myself, as a matter of fact. Well, the next morning, it's 100 miles back to Denver on my Yamaha with my right hand. Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
I was like, yeah.
Now, at the end of this, I made it back to Denver. It didn't turn out to be anything third degree. It was second degree, and I had a blister from here to here that was just awful. It was awful. There's no doubt about it. And the story, I could still, telling the story, I could still feel it. I could sit here and feel it just like this. But it healed up just fine, and I have no, nothing like that. But God, the universe, the collection of souls, the force, whatever you want to call it, was trying to tell me something. Girls like that burn you, man. Now, the funny thing about those crotch rockets is if you ride those bikes the way they are meant to be ridden, they will leave you a bloody wreck on the side of the road before long.
Good analogy.
Now, God was being nice to me, and He just burnt my hand, and that's that. Okay, I live to tell the story. There's no doubt about it. So, I'm going to ask you, what's the answer? Nobody wants a bike that just takes you from A to B. I mean, we all know they're efficient transportation. Even a lousy bike's fun to ride. I give you the flying Hawaiian, right? It's fun to ride.
Did you just call that a lousy bike?
The crotch rockets will kill you. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
But they're fun. I mean, you know, you could say, yeah, Kimberly, what a way to die. You know? You gotta go, right? What's the answer? What's the answer? I'm asking y'all, what's the answer? Himalayan.
Right fast with a character.
What?
There's old bikers and there's bold bikers.
Yeah, I know. They
But
say
there's no old bold
same
bikers.
thing about raft guides, right? Old rafters and bold ones, but there's not old bold ones.
Sounds like you see a bunch of bikes.
Well,
From the black hole.
I'm wearing this shirt. I'm wearing this shirt today as a tribute to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was a Harley rider. He rode a lot of different kinds of bikes, but in the late 60s, he was a short track racer and one of the best in the country. And he ended up working, he got an automotive engineering degree, and he ended up working for Harley Davidson. It was his last gig. And he designed and built and operated the automated test equipment that tests all the Harleys and stuff that you plug them into. He started out on cars, on engine scopes and stuff, worked for Allen Test Products and Sun and Bear, and then he trademarked his own, and that's the Harley product. It's in all Harley dealerships. So he was all the time trying to pass me all this Harley trash. You know, he's trying to give me a wallet, give me a keychain, give me this, and I never rode a Harley. And I'm like, Frank, I don't want to be a poser, man. I appreciate that stuff, but I don't ride a Harley, and I can't afford a Harley. If I could buy a Harley, I'd buy a house. But I can't. The last time when I was a school teacher, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I can't have, that's not gonna happen. So one day he was standing with me and my sister, and he was getting dressed for work, and he put on this shirt. And I was a school teacher at the time, and you can't see it. It says Harley Davidson University, and it's in Milwaukee. It's their office where they train Harley techs. And on this side it says faculty. And I thought, okay, Frank, that's a cool shirt. Not a lot of those around. You can't buy that at a Harley shop. I want one of those shirts. And he looks at me and says, yeah, I bet you do. I said, no, Frank, it's okay. Well, 3 years ago this month, we lost my brother-in-law, Frank. Sorry. So he did it the right way. He lived his life the right way. And so I thought that, you know, probably I ought to end this story by saying, you know, you don't want an A to B bike, and you don't want a crotch rocket. I guess someday I'm probably going to have to buy a Harley. Frank, somewhere. I know. See, okay. What should I buy?
Triumph.
A Triumph. Yep, I showed you a Triumph. Are you trying that Triumph?
Bob,
No.
Don't listen to these assholes. Buy a Panhead.
Buy a Panhead. There you go. All right.
Go electric.
Go electric.
Listen,
Of course, Tom.
I'll end this lesson with saying my wife and I have spent the winter in Louisville. We travel around a lot. She's a traveling nurse. I was smart enough to marry somebody younger than me, so she is my retirement plan. Thanks for making it a great town, and thanks for being welcoming to us. We really appreciate it. It's great to be in a room full of bikers.
I think you should ride whatever bike makes your butt happy. So, whether it be Harley, whether it be BSA, whether it be Royal Enfield, whether it be Triumph, no matter what it is, ride it if it makes you happy. And that's really, I think, the true testament to motorcycling, because everyone's got a bike that makes them happy.